things theology, all things theology. We chop it up properly, without an apology. Gotta give doxology to God hollow, because this is how we do it at All Things Theology. Yo, grace and peace, guys. Welcome to another edition of All Things Theology. I'm your host, Kdub, and man, it's been a little while, guys. Been a while. Good to be back here. Good to be back. Today, got a good episode, but just want to thank those that are watching on YouTube. Make sure to leave a comment. Tell me what your thoughts are on this video as we get into it. And if you're not subscribed, please do so. Please do that. Like this video. If you're listening on podcast streaming app, thank you. Share this out if it blesses you. Now let's get into the video, man. Today I want to talk about the Pope of white fragility. Just kidding. No, this is a main voice of white fragility. And the reason why I'm addressing this particular person, this particular topic, is because we guys know, if you've been listening here, if you've been paying any attention to a lot of Southern Baptist circles or Christian circles, you know that the topic of white fragility has come up more than once. But this person has been a major influencer in that particular topic. DiAngelo, right? She has wrote the book on white fragility. And I don't know how this came through my feed, but it was something to watch. It was like 8 minutes long, so I was like, hey, I've never really listened to her as far as lecture wise. So I was like, hey, I'll give it a shot. I'll listen to Robin DiAngelo talk about white fragility, and let's get into it, guys. Let's just get into it. You know, I don't want to waste any time. Let's get into what she has to say, and I'm going to give her critique on what she has to say. All right, so as you see on the screen, for those watching, for those listening, I'll read to you. It says 3 ways to challenge white fragility. Okay, so we're gonna go through what she says 3 ways to challenge your white fragility. And sorry, white people, this may challenge your white fragility.
The first guidance that I would offer white people is to work to answer the question, what does it mean to be white?
All right, so let's just stop there. So the first way to challenge white fragility is to, define what does it mean to be white. So she's got to define what it means to be white. So let's get into her definition of whiteness, as we've heard before.
In some ways, that may seem like a simple question, but I've been asking my fellow white people and myself that question for 25 years, and consistently white people have very pattern responses to it. And the first response is discomfort, and the second is an inability to think critically about that question. And if you can't answer what it means to be white, you cannot hold what it means not to be white. Our inability to think critically about how our own race shapes us is not benign, and it's not neutral, and it's not innocent. The collective impact of the white majority not being able to answer that question, how race shapes our lives, collectively creates an environment that is hostile and unsupportive to people of color.
Echo, so even there, right? So, right, it seems like Robin DiAngelo, let me start off here first, that white people are monolithic, right? Because this has to be a collective answer of what it means to be white. Now, she wants to say, collectively, right, not individualistically, but then she'll use individualistic language, how you personally are shaped by your, biases and things like that. Like I said, so I don't believe that white people are monolithic. I don't think any particular people are monolithic. And nor do I think the question, what it means to be black, what it means to be white, makes up who you are. And we'll get even more into that. So so if you don't agree with her definition of what it means to be white, right? You don't think that's a starting point question even to ask about a person right away. You know, she's saying, well, it just makes you uncomfortable, and white people don't want to talk about things like what it means to be white, right? Because we all know they're racist, which you'll get into a little bit later, but and nevertheless, what it means to be white kind of say projects what that means for people of color, i.e., black people, but not my kind of black people, right? We know the black people she's talking about because not black conservatives, not the thousands of black conservatives, millions of black conservatives. It's a particular kind of black person that's painted by white liberals. That's the people of color she's talking about. Don't be confused, guys. She's not talking about me, people of color.
Because people of color working and living in primarily white environments know that most white people can't answer that question.
We just know it, right? We know that white people don't know what it means to be white. As if there's a collectivist answer on what it means to be white. There's a collective answer on what it means to be black, although there are people that try to paint that there is. And so I reject her starting points because, like I said, we're going to get further into why.
And that means they can't bring their authentic selves. They can't talk to us about what they're experiencing. They can't give us feedback about what they're experiencing from us.
I find it very weird and arrogant and actually insulting that she wants to speak collectively as a white person. And notice this, guys. She claims to be a racist. Now, she's going to define the racism she kind of means because she's not talking about the KKK racism. Although I think a lot of that comes from her struggles, but that's just me personally speaking. She's not talking about that kind of racism. She has the new definition of racism that a lot of people in churches have bought into, by the way. And so that's really why I'm getting into this video. And she wants to tell you how black people think. Black people, you know what? They really struggle talking to white people because white people don't want to admit they're white and what it means to be white. I'll tell you what, as a black person, I don't go around ever thinking that. I don't care. My main things are trying to please the Lord and make sure I provide for my wife and what I'm gonna eat that day. I don't I don't go around thinking, look at that white person. They don't even know what it means to be white. That's why I can't talk to them. I'm so frustrated about my experiences. Oh, making black people sound fragile.
For several reasons. One, I'm going to have no critical awareness to engage in a conversation. I'm going to have no skills in navigating that conversation. And I'm going to likely have no emotional capacity to withstand the discomfort of that conversation. And that means that people of color endure countless daily slights and indignities, mostly unaware and unintentional, but harmful nonetheless. And they endure those and take them home because their consistent experience is that things are going to get worse for them if they try to talk to us about it rather than better.
So she's the expert on, the experiences of black people, how they feel, because she really understands what it means to be white. And, you can see this white fragility leading into concepts like white guilt. And so I just find this kind of very saddening that she goes around thinking, one, this is good, that, one, black people really feel like they can't talk to white people. And two, white people are so, as she said, right, illogical, unaware of what it means to be white, right, as she has explained what it means to be white, that they can't even listen to black people. And so I think she's creating this narrative of hostility between these two ethnicities from the jump. And we're going to see how worse it gets. It gets, what if you're thinking, how could it get worse? Just watch.
The very first thing we need to do is begin to unpack how race shapes our lives. We're raised to think about race as what they have. And if we're going to be talking about race, we expect we'll be talking about their race. And we have to start putting the lens on ourselves. And that is a lifelong process. The second
So I want you to remember, this is a lifelong process. You'll never arrive fully, though. It's a lifelong process.
guidance I would offer my fellow white people is to change what you understand it means to be racist.
All right, so her second way to challenge, in those white fragility is change what you understand what it means to be racist. So historically, what you thought to be racist, right? Um, hateful of another ethnicity, superior, that having the superiority complex or believing that another ethnicity is inferior, changing that understanding, the understanding which it's always been, it needs to be changed. That's not the true racism of critical race theory.
Mainstream teaches us that a racist is an individual who consciously doesn't like people based on race, apparently has to be conscious in order to count, and intentionally seeks to be mean to them. Also, apparently needs to be intentional in order to count. So individual, conscious, malintent across race. And I don't know that you could have come up with a more effective way to protect the system of racism. Because if that's what I think it means to be racist, and you suggest that anything I've said or done is racially problematic, that I'm making an assumption that comes from a racist framework, much less that I benefit and collude with the system of racism just by being white, what I'm going to hear you saying is that I am a morally wrong and bad person.
Yes, that would definitely be the case. But notice she doesn't think that the new definition of racism presupposes moral, evil, bad person. Just the way she framed that. But notice what she said even prior to that. Hold on, let me go back so you can definitely hear that.
And I don't know that you could have come up with a more effective way to protect the system of racism. Because if that's what I think it means to be racist, and you suggest that anything I've said or done is racially problematic, that I'm making an assumption that comes from a racist framework, much less that I benefit and collude with the system of racism just by being white.
Notice that you benefit and collude from the system just by being white. Right? That involves her definition of racism. So if you are white, you are a beneficiary of the system of which is racist. And so and you can see how this secular concept has embodied and popped its ugly secular head in many pulpits. I know many of you guys have heard this. That's this exact same teaching ideology that has made itself aware in many churches. That's why I say Robin DiAngelo's books have been passed out in many churches. Her books are in churches. In many churches, her preaching in the pulpit would not be a problem, stating everything she just said.
What I'm going to hear you saying is that I am a morally wrong and bad person. And now I'm going to have to defend my moral character. I think that simplistic definition of what it means to be racist is the root of virtually all white defensiveness on this topic. And it's actually incredibly liberating to just start from.
So hold on, before she gets to that, because I definitely want to get into that. So if you don't think you're a racist, like that's a part of the problem if you're white. No, because right, we know this isn't about people of color, right? People of color are not racist, not in the way she's talking about. But if you don't think you're a racist, like you've just set up defense mechanisms to protect yourself because you benefit from the system, right? And so that's her reason why you don't want to think you're a racist.
Is the root of virtually all white defensiveness on this topic. And it's actually incredibly liberating to just start from the premise that of course you absorbed a racist worldview.
So it is racism. It is liberating to assume the premise, right? That you're racist. I don't know how that's liberating at all. To just, hey, before there's any proof, the premise is true that you're a racist. So To even ask the question how or why you're a racist. Hold on, hold on. Don't you want to be liberated? Well, yeah, but how am I a racist? See, that is the very proof you're. So that's how like the logic goes in white fragility, Robin DiAngelo's critical race theory world. You have to start from the premise, right? It just like she says in her book. You know, it is the air. Racism is the air you breathe. You know, it's not how or why you are racist. It's you are a racist. You have to start from that premise.
In racist water, you live in a society in which racism is embedded in all institutions and policies and practices and norms and language. And of course, you've absorbed it.
It's everywhere, except critical race theory, and you know that's not racist. That's the liberation. It's everywhere except what I'm telling you. You know, so it's kind of self refuting because this ideology of critical race theories is actually to expose the racism and to liberate us from when I say us, the white people, white people from racism, and it's supposed to be the liberator. But critical race theory says every system, every ideology, policy is rooted in racism. It is the air we breathe. She said it's the water we drink. So it's either it's true or not. So I find that kind of ironic that she states things like that.
And so you can just stop defending, deflecting, denying, hoping nobody will notice, explaining, minimizing.
So stop denying you're a racist. Just admit it. Just admit it, my friend, and you will be liberated. This is kind of, I imagine someone, I'll speak to males out here. Males, imagine someone accusing you of having a relationship with a woman you didn't have and forcing yourself on her in a way she didn't want, okay? And someone comes up to you or just admit you did it. Come on, you're not a morally evil person. Just admit you did it, and you will be liberated by this truth. If you're an irrational man, and if rape has any meaning of definition, even if you rechange that to mean a system by men, get advantage, you still wouldn't want to be called a rapist, right? I only changed one letter in that word, by the way. But I hope you guys get my point. No rational person, just because you change the definition of what it means to be racist, and I even reject her new form of definition of racism because it's not actually fair. Um, yeah, it's asinine, And like I said, I know that a lot of people have bought into this, a lot of Christians, but I want them to know where they're getting it from. Her and Peggy McIntosh. These people were hostile to the Christian faith, and so yeah, you can change the definition all you want and make it seem like it's a good thing for people to admit they're racist, even when they're not. But it's not a good thing.
And get to work aligning what you profess to value with the actual action of your life. It's liberating. I cannot convey that enough. And most of white fragility that we're encountering is coming from this idea that to suggest that one has been impacted by racism is to suggest that one is an intentionally mean person across race.
So, right, anybody rejecting what Robin DiAngelo claims it means to be racist, they are showing their white fragility. That's what she claims, right? To ask how or why, that is white fragility, right? And so, yeah, for her, it's a good thing to admit you're a racist. But I don't know about you guys, but I do not want a drunkard. Let's say I struggled with drunkenness. Say I was a drunkard, and I wanted to get rid of, that problem I had. I don't know about you guys, but I don't want a drunkard telling me how to get rid of this problem. But with this issue, it's funny. We think it's informative to listen to a racist tell us how to get rid of racism. She admits to being she admits to being a racist. Now, obviously, it's her new founded definition of racism, but I don't think that racists should inform us on how to get rid of racism. I mean, maybe you guys differ. Tell me what you think.
Easier said than done because it's so deep inside our psyches that that's what it means to be racist. But that is what we have to constantly work on. Changing what you understand it means. We cannot get where we need to go from the dominant paradigm that says only the Richard Spencers of the world, only neo-Nazis could ever be racist. We have to stop saying things like, I don't have a racist bone in my body, which is absurd if you have any self-awareness or self-knowledge.
And by the way, she's talking about white people, not people of color. But she's saying if you think that you're not a racist, you're a racist. Like, it's absurd because from her perspective, if you're white, you are a racist. To say, hey, no, I don't, because like I said, she's not talking about, hateful, you know, bigoted KKK style racism, neo-Nazi racism, but the racism that says white people benefit from societies, which I even say that's asinine. Because even if you accepted the level of the systemic racism talk and white people are beneficiaries, there are many white people who don't. You can point to. They say, look, they're not helping your case, and those things just gets dismissed, and they have other words to label you as and things like that.
The last guidance I would offer is humility coupled with accountability. I will never be free of my racist conditioning. So,
boom, there you go. So she will never be free, no matter how hard she works. She strives and labors and toils day by day, night by night, hour by hour, minute by minute. She's still gonna be a racist. I mean, boy, join our system, right? To get rid of racism, but you'll never not be racist. I mean, don't you ever think that. No matter how much you dismantle the system, or even if the system gets flipped, racism will be with you forever, right? Because you will always be a racist. Man, what a depressing ideology. What a backwards message from Christianity, right? I think of 1 Corinthians 6 of such were some of you, right? But you were washed, you were sanctified. There's no such were some of you in critical race theory, in white fragility ideology, right? You will always be this racist. I mean, says the leader, right?
Just be really clear. As a result of being raised as a white person in this society, I have a racist worldview. I have racist biases.
So I want to know her, is critical race theory a racist worldview, right? She says she has a racist worldview and she holds the critical race theory and white fragility, all these things. Are these part of the racist worldview? Or they are the liberator of the racist worldview? Like, you know what I'm saying? I would hope she would. I know she's not going to answer me personally, but to my white fragility, white guilted friends out there, what do you say?
I have investments in a system that has served me and that is comfortable and that has helped me overcome barriers that I do face. I'm not saying white people don't face barriers, but we don't face that one, and not facing that one impacts.
So white people don't face barriers of racism. They're the racist, not the victim of racism. So there you go. Because the system's for white people, apparently.
How we navigate the barriers that we do face. And I also have an investment in not seeing it with that. But what it would suggest to me about my identity as a good moral person, if I can't move past this idea that only mean, intentional people could be racist. And I also have an investment in not seeing that because what it would actually require of me in practice, and it would require much more than smiling and niceness. It would require much more than fond regard. There's so many of us who are white think that if there's fond regard across race, there can't be racism. And this is why we invoke all our friends. I have men in my life who have fond regard for me, and on occasion they reveal a sexist worldview rooted in patriarchy. How could they not? Again, we can be in relation.
It's all the system, it's always outward, never inward. So her view of sin, or you know, yeah, sin, it's outward. It's all outward, not inward. Yeah, I don't actually hate women or view them as lower or hate the other ethnicity, but I'm a part of the system that does. And so, I think that's kind of, backwards in the Christian worldview.
And still perpetrate problematic behaviors on occasion. And so we have to have humility, ongoing humility about the necessary limits of our understanding. And we cannot use our own self-image to certify ourselves as free of racism and good to go. I am the...
Well, unless you're a racist, then that is proof of the system's racism, So why don't you have humility for people who confront with you and say, maybe you're wrong about this? Because you need to be humility. What she's essentially, you need to have humility to come to the conclusion I've come to, so.
Least qualified to determine how well I'm doing. I don't call myself an ally. I don't call myself an anti-racist, and I don't walk around feeling woke. Because the moment I do, I'm complacent, I'm arrogant, and I'm likely to be highly defensive at any suggestion that I may not be quite as woke as I think that I
am. There's always someone more woke than you. So you Christians out there who have bought into this, don't think you're woke yet. Don't think you're such an anti-racist or an ally, because hey, you bought into this system that says you'll always be a racist. So you have much work to do before you can even think of calling yourself woke or anti-racist or an ally to people of color.
For people of color to decide how well I'm doing. And
well, allow me to inform you how well I think you're doing. Like I said, I don't think she's talking about me, but I think her ideology, her worldview is fundamentally one, asinine, but also fundamentally bad for solving the problem, or what she perceives as the problem of racism. It doesn't actually help, because from her worldview, there's no getting out of it. It's always there. You can't escape that problem. So I don't know how. Like I said, that's so conflicting, because in her worldview, she say that, but then she says, "Well, like, we have much work to do to dismantle the system." How can you dismantle the system that will always be there? So there are some fundamental questions that I think she needs to reflect on.
How do I know what their determination is? Am I in accountable relationships? And I want to be really clear, having a friend of color, being married to somebody of color, having nieces and nephews of color, working in a diverse workplace is not accountability. Accountability practices.
So you can do everything, you could really just show your heart of helping people of color, giving your money, befriending black people, marrying one, having family members, investing time. None of that proves you're not a racist. None of that proves anything, for white fragility ideology.
Include donating a percentage of your income to racial justice causes led by people of color.
Reparations, and not just reparations to organizations that are led by black people. And so if you're not giving that cash, white people, you ain't really sorry. You can say it all day you want, but Jerry Maguire, man, show me the money. Show me the money, man, if you're really sorry. So hey, Robin DiAngelo, this is your opportunity. You can give to All Things Theology. It's led by a black male, to really show really show how sorry you are. I won't believe you. I won't believe you until, and then once you give, I'll determine how accountable you are, how humble you've been. How do I do, guys? I'm trying this woke thing out.
having clearly defined relationships across race where you pay people of color to give you feedback or to engage in these conversations.
I'm all for it. I am all for it, Robin DiAngelo. Like I said, I'll leave a comment. Feel free to email me, and I'll give you my feedback once I see the cash first. Because of course I can't. You know how it is. People of color aren't really willing to talk to white people. As you stated so eloquently in this video.
You don't just assume that they are there to do all that emotional work and all that heavy lifting. That is a piece of the conversation you have with people you're seeking to have accountability relationships with.
Man, black people in this video, she just made black people just sound so soft, so I don't know, weak. Like we need all those white people help because we're just going through so much and life is hard and I don't know what I'm gonna do if a white person comes and talks to me. I mean, don't get me wrong. That is a description of Kyle J. Howard, but that is not. That is a true description of somebody, But that is not a description of your average black person. I don't think most black people think about what's going in the hearts and minds of white people, So
white people in your life who have a strong analysis and who will lovingly hold you accountable. And then you build your capacity to notice your own behaviors and practices. And when you put all those three things together, relationships with people of color, strong relationships with white people who will challenge you, and ongoing, continual struggling and grappling and educating yourself, you're going to have much more accountable relationships. But just kind of assuming smiling and niceness is all you need is not going to cut it.
Ain't gonna cut it, white folks. Ain't gonna cut it. If you just being smiling nice to black people, just treating them like a human being, that's not good enough. She's on that Jerry Maguire ideology. Show me the money. You can't just be nice to people and just treat people equal and fair and just love them and, I don't know, just respect them as a person made in the image of God. No, it's not enough. Man, guys, this is sad because, like I said, this stuff has been coming into the church. I've seen this from mainline pastors and teachers who have, like I said, been teaching everything she just said. Would have been applauded in many churches today. Just really shows how much of Christianity and stuff people who have bought into this ideology have gone so far from what Scripture teaches, because you can't find none of that in the Bible. No, if we're looking for what the Bible says about these issues, no way, none of that's in the Bible. But that just really shows, you have a lot of Christian circles listening more to secularism than what Scripture has to say about things like, partiality and things like that. And so, yeah, I hope I was informative to a lot of people when it comes to this issue of white fragility and what I think about it and white guilt and the issue of racism. Because I do think there is a force out there that is trying to change this definition to get people to buy, white people, that is, to buy into a system or a concept that is not true. And it's not a biblical category for what she's speaking about. And so, yeah, guys, hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure to leave a comment, to drop a like, to share this episode if it blesses you guys. Thank you for watching another episode of All Things Theology. Till the next time, grace and peace. Everybody